Dover Motor Speedway has been around since 1969 and has created a reputation of being a tough and challenging track for equipment and driver skills when the track became concrete, mainly known for concrete chaos, which gave the name the Monster Mile. With the Monster Mile as a mascot for Dover, NASCAR has a long history of racing at Dover, whether it's Richard Petty winning the inaugural Dover race in 1969, the track being from asphalt to concrete, the crashes and challenges to race at the track, and Jimmy Johnson conquering the Monster Mile 11 times. As for IndyCar, it's a short history, but let's just say the Monster Mile was never a fan of IndyCar racing at its track back in 1998 to 1999. But in this episode, we are going to be talking about the time when the USAC Champ Car Series raced at the Dover Downs International Speedway. Before we go on with this episode, I want to let you all know that there's no footage for this race and not a lot of photos and sources from this race. I did the best I can to find what I find, and I'll do my best to go by what I find. With that being said, let's begin. The 1969 Delaware 200 at Dover Downs International Speedway was the 14th race of 24-race schedule of the 1969 USAC Champ Car Series season, which took place on Sunday, August 24th, 1969. 22 cars would start the race, but 7 drivers would miss the show. Lloyd Ruby, due to a practice crash, Bill Simpson, Tom Bigelow, he did not start the race because he was too slow. Larry Dixon, due to magneto problems, Jim Reynard, Gig Stevens, and Greg Weld, he would DNQ for the race. Bobby Unser would start on the pole for the race and with a speed of 155.259 miles per hour. At the start of the race, Roger McCluskey led the field down to the green and led the first 34 laps of the race. Meanwhile, pole sitter Bobby Unser would DNF after 3 laps due to valve issues. Joe Leonard would DNF after 14 laps due to handling issues. Mario Andretti would take the lead away from Roger McCluskey on lap 35. Mario Andretti would lead 18 laps until Al Unser took the lead away from Mario Andretti on lap 54. Speaking of Al Aquasto would actually be parked after 55 laps after being black flagged. AJ Foyt would DNF after running for 56 laps after having valve issues. Jim McElrath would DNF after running 62 laps due to engine issues. Ludwig Heimrath would get black flagged and call it a race after running 73 laps. Jim Malloy would DNF after running 85 laps due to handling problems, and Bud Tingelstad would DNF after running 95 laps due to rear end problems. After running green flag nonstop for 115 laps, caution would be out for Wally Dahlback's crash, finishing 14th. While the race was under yellow, Max Dudley would DNF after running 122 laps due to fuel leak. The race would go back underway on lap 129 after running under caution for 13 laps, but the restart wouldn't last long. Al Unser, who led the most laps by leading 75 laps, would crash out of the race in turn 4, and Art Pollard would take the lead. Another restart took place on lap 144 after running under caution for 4 laps. 3 laps later, Mario Andretti would crash out on lap 147. The race went back underway after 8 laps under caution, and for the remainder of the race went underway. Nobody else DNF'd, and Art Pollard would lead the final 72 laps of the race, avoiding trouble, keeping his nose clean, and win the 1969 Delaware 200 at Dover Downs. Gordon Johncock would be the last car on the lead lap, taking home a second-place finish. The race had 3 cautions, average speed of 124.978 miles per hour, 4 different leaders and lead changes. The race lasted 1 hour, 36 minutes, and a second. 10 cars would finish the race. After the 1969 Delaware 200, Mario Andretti would win the 1969 USAC Champ Car Series Championship. There would be no IndyCar racing at Dover until 1998 and 1999, and those 2 races were one of the most dangerous IndyCar races ever took place. After 1999, the sport would not return to Dover due to low attendance, and I'm gonna be real, as for someone who supports oval racing IndyCar that wishes for more, I don't blame anybody for not showing up for the IndyCar race at Dover. It's a disaster and dangerous track for IndyCar, and like I mentioned on my oval tracks IndyCar should not race at video from 2022, I mentioned it. Y'all should check out that video though, links in the description below. Art Pollard's win at Dover would be his second and final ever IndyCar race at Dover. In 1973, Art Pollard would unfortunately lose his life while practicing for the first day of Indy 500 qualifying. He was 46 years old. Ironically, Gordon Johncock, who finished second to Art Pollard at the Dover race, would win the 1973 Indianapolis 500, but there were no celebrations after teammate Sweet Savage suffered a horrifying accident, dying 6 weeks later. To end this episode on a lighter note, despite Dover being a very dangerous track to IndyCar racing, it is cool to look back at the history of IndyCar racing at the time when they were at Dover. It wasn't easy to find pictures and information about this race, so I did what I could find. If you want to add more information about this race, feel free to comment below. And for the old school racing fans, did y'all attend this race? If so, how was it like? Comment below to talk about it. So that's going to do it for another episode of Racing Stories. Thank y'all so much for watching. This is Ian the Motorsports Man, signing off. Goodbye, everybody.